Alrighty, what's up, everyone? Good morning. Good morning. What's up? What's up? Hope you guys are doing well. Today is November the 25th. Today is a Tuesday. In the overall markets, we do have core PPI coming into today, which is going to be at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We also do have some other red folder news events as well, which we'll talk about. But for the overall market, really solid push towards the upside yesterday, really straight off the key levels we talked about. Your Monday's lows that we had marked out here on SPY. We also had the QQQ previous day highs, super solid level for a push towards the upside. And you can see a couple of these tech names rising here. We actually have some news here in the after hours. Is semis are still staying a little bit heavy. So AMD and NVIDIA were our main watches for potential continuation downside. Ended up moving higher yesterday, but I see dropping here in the pre-market. The only thing that's moving and that's holding up the general market here is Google. So you can see Google really strong push higher based off of bullish news catalyst right a few weeks ago. And then of course some more bullish news catalyst that is pushing higher here as well. So we'll kind of talk about this here in a second. Before we do that, good morning. Let me pull up the Forex factor as well. What's up, everyone? Good morning, B Roots. Good morning, Victor, Cody, Jeff, KO, Andreas, Juan, 50. What's up, everyone? Deuce, Wayne, Big Money, Ryan, Cinna, Daniel, Willie. What's up, everyone? Vate, Caroline, Robert, Deuce, I am. Yeah, what's up, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. Grace, what's up? Expire. You can open up a help ticket in the Discord and someone will help you out. Let's see. Yeah, it's good, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Let me grab some water here and we'll get started. Okay. Let me pull up the Forex factor. So coming into today, so the key news events that we have a few. Major red folder news events. We haven't had core PPI in a while, but now this is going to be on Tuesday this morning, which is going to be at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we'll go over some charts. We'll go over the major indices. We'll go over some tech names, and then we'll develop our game plan really after 8:30, since that's when the red folder news drops, along with core PPI, right? Core retail sales. And then for tomorrow, we have some more red folder news events, which is going to be at 8:30 once again, which is unemployment claims. And of course, as I mentioned, Thursday's a holiday, Friday's a half day. So you just want to be more cautious. Of course, you're not going to be trading Thursday, and then Friday, you want to be more cautious. So these are the red folder news events that we have coming into today. So we'll just wait until 8:30 to see what happens. Let's go on to some charts here now. Let's go on to the SPY and the QQQ. So number one thing, so far you can see we're finding some buyers really offer higher time frame key level of support. So this is the exact level we talked about coming into this week to see if the buyers want to see potentially step in here based off the higher time frames. As for yesterday, the key levels we had marked out was fairly clear. All we had marked out was the Monday's low, right? If we can get above this key level here for the overall markets, potential continuation higher. Similar thing here with the Qs, you can see multiple touches, support, multiple touches around this general area, resistance. If we can get above this level, potential continuation higher. If we reject, we can see a push towards the downside. But with the overall market, we end up having this nice break back above your Friday's highs, retested it here on the QQQ, and then we end up having this nice push towards the upside. So for the overall markets coming into today, really the only levels I have marked out, at least coming to this week, 66.60. And then we have our last week's lows, we have our last week's highs, and I just marked out this brand new level, which is just your previous day highs. You can see touch here, right? Multiple touches that we've already had at this general level. So coming into today, fairly similar game plan as yesterday. Now what we're just going to do is mark out your previous day highs. So this is going to be a very key pivot point, 67.30. If you want to see some upside coming into today above your previous day highs, hold for a continuation higher. Another possible scenario, consolidation, break above your previous day highs later into the session, and a push back towards the upside. So there's really only two scenarios coming into today. Both of them occur above your previous day highs for longs. So we're going to keep an eye out on your 67.30. If you want to see some downside coming into today, maybe potentially with core PPI. The key levels that we're going to have marked out, similar thing, previous day highs here. The only short scenario that I have is a potential kind of pop, fade, and rejection, and a push towards the downside. So this is really the number one scenario for a short. Another possible scenario here as well is potentially the break below your pre-market lows. That's in play for a pushback towards the downside. Uh, so we'll see what shapes up in the market. I'm actually leaning a little bit more towards the bullish side. So I have like a 60-40 stance. So I'm 60% bullish, 40% bearish coming into today. So I'm leaning a little bit more towards the upside than I am towards the downside, but we'll see what shapes up, as I mentioned, here with core PPI. That's in about 20 minutes here now. For the SPY here as well, key levels that we're going to have marked out, similar thing, previous day highs. By the way, the levels that I drew out or that I posted for you guys, I'm not sure if they're working or not, but hopefully some of you guys were able to use these levels. I'm not exactly sure how it worked with the layout that I shared on the weekly outlook. I might have to share it constantly, or I forget exactly what the issue, because some people are telling me that once they copy the layout, they can't change timeframes, or there's only a certain amount of tickers you can look at. But the levels I posted on the weekly outlook are basically the same ones that I mentioned yesterday, and that were respected fairly nicely. But if they aren't working, then I'll have to figure that out. As for the SPY coming into today, key levels, exact same thing. Previous day highs, 670. If you want to see some upside, exact same game plan, right? Break above, or if we consolidate, break above later into the session for a continuation higher. For rejections, right? Pop and fade, offers 670, or now it's really going to be underneath your pre-market lows for a potential continuation lower here as well. So these are the two scenarios for the SPY and Qs. SPY, exact same thing as ES. If you look at the QQQ, exact same thing. Right, both the scenarios are very similar. If you want to see upside, break above now your 25,000. If you want to see a continuation later into the session, right, reclaim later back above your 25,000. For shorts, pop and fade off your previous day highs, or now it's going to be break underneath your pre-market lows for a continuation down in towards our highs that we created from last week, right, Friday's highs. So exact same game plan on both SPY and the QQQ coming into today. For the QQQ, exact same thesis. The key level in this case, just mark out your previous day highs. I have this body, so I have this wick to the body marked out, upside, right, break above. Two scenarios. If you want to see some downside as well, pop and fade. Or now it's going to be underneath your pre-market lows for potential continuation lower. As I mentioned, I have a 60-40 stance. I'm leaning a little bit more towards the upside, 60% bullish coming into today, and then 40% 40% bearish. At least that's my stance coming to market open. All right. As for the SMH, quickly go over this and kind of talk about some of the semiconductors that we do have. So some of the semis bouncing off key levels once again. Key levels that we have here on the higher time frames is really this 300 key psych. So you can see semis have been fairly strong the past really couple months, right? With specifically AMD and NVIDIA. These ones, of course, are pulling back here now, but AVGO and a couple of the other themes along with the semis are pushing this back towards the upside. Now, moving forward here on on the SMH is just going to be this 334. If you want to see some upside, maintain above your 334 for continuation. If we potentially break underneath, right, we're going to see a push really all the way back down in towards that news candle low, which is going to be that 320. So this is what we have for the SMH. Now let's go into some of these tech names that we do have. So if you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can drop them in the chat. I'll go over them for the next really 15 minutes here until we do have core PPI, which is at 8:30. So if you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can now drop them in the chat. All right, what's up, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like, of course. If you guys haven't joined the daily watch list, that one is in the description below. We also have our Black Friday sale going on as well. So if you guys want to join in on the accelerator, lifetime's $1,000 off, and then annual's $500 off. Okay, let's go into Tesla. So Tesla was the main trade that we took towards the upside yesterday. Key levels that we just had marked out was our previous day high. So nice kind of break and retest right off the bat above our previous day highs and continuation higher. And then we had a 5-minute opening range push towards upside here as well. So for the overall markets, at least specifically for Tesla moving forward, key levels that we're just going to have marked out is going to be this 424. So this 424 is key here. You can see multiple touches. If you want to see upside, right, we really now just need to see the break above your previous day highs in this general area for a continuation higher. If you want to see a break higher, really above 424, right, resistance, and you want to see it get above, turn into support. What you don't want to see is a push higher and then rejection and come all the way back down. So this is what we have here for Tesla coming into today. If you go into the lower time frames, these are really what the levels I have marked out. I basically have your previous day highs. I might have to readjust this level. Let me actually just readjust this real quick. I'm going to make it so it's kind of touching this 424 and your previous day highs here as well. So this is the level. You can see another touch, a couple touches, basically this low here all the way from November the 7th. So just readjusted that level just a little bit so it's touching ones here. Coming into today here for Tesla specifically, if you do want to see any sort of push towards the upside, right, two scenarios here. Either the break above your previous day highs, hold above this for continuation higher. Another possible scenario is really just this consolidation, right? Potential 5-minute opening range for a continuation higher, or the bounce off your pre-market lows for a push higher here as well. I like really scenario 1 and 2. Right, so the break above your previous day highs or this consolidation and then a push up in towards your previous day highs. These are my two top scenarios for Tesla upside. It's really going to be above this 422. If we're looking at some downside here on Tesla, right, potential higher time frame rejection, as I mentioned, off of your last week's high. So it very much well could come up and reject off this general area. But with the overall market showing a little bit more strength, I'd be cautious of this, right? Just kind of this pop and fade off of your 424s, of course, in play. It's going to be a little bit harder to short. There's better shorts, in my opinion. And then for another possible short scenario, really consolidation, potentially break underneath your pre-market low for a continuation lower here as well. So as I mentioned, I do have a quite neutral stance on the overall indices. As for Tesla, similar thing. I have like a 60-40 stance on Tesla towards the upside. So that's what we have coming into today. Let's go on to NVIDIA. So let's go into this ticker along with AMD. These ones have been showing some more weakness compared to the market ever since we had earnings really last week. Let's go into the daily chart. So as you can see here for NVIDIA, higher time frames, rejecting off this key pivot high. So basically our left shoulder, you can see right shoulder, right with earnings, right, immediate rejection straight off this level and push towards the downside. This is kind of what the higher time frame looks like on most tickers, specifically even the Qs here as well. But the Qs are essentially bouncing higher. You can see if I go back onto the Qs, right, similar kind of thesis here. But now the Qs is bouncing off key levels of support. SPY, similar thing, bouncing off your key level of support. You can see NVIDIA is showing a little bit more weakness now, right? If it was in line with the Qs and SPY, it would be back at your 190 at a minimum. Now this one's showing some relative weakness. It's actually closer to your 176. So for NVIDIA along with AMD, you can clearly see that these tickers are staying a lot more heavy now. Key levels that we had really coming into this week was just primarily that Friday's highs, last week's lows, and we had our earnings highs marked out. If we go into the lower time frames now, let's just get rid of this level. Right, key levels coming to today here for Tesla is we had our Friday's highs marked out, and now we have our last week's lows. Other levels we can have marked out as well. We can actually just still have this general area. Let's see. Yeah, touch here, 180 is a key level. Touch here, of course, the major levels are going to be that 184 along with your 174. But for NVIDIA coming into today, so we are coming into a key level support here on the higher time frames. What I would like to see coming into today, if we want to see some downside, right? Primarily, you just want to see a hold underneath now. It's going to be your previous day lows. So if you want to see downside, there's really two scenarios here. Let's kind of have this marked out. There's two scenarios here for NVIDIA downside, right? Pop and fade off your 177 for continuation lower, right? Number one scenario, right? Pop and fade for continuation, or now it's going to be underneath your last week's lows, 174 for continuation lower here as well. So really two scenarios here played out on NVIDIA potentially. Since this one is showing more weakness compared to the overall market, I'm leaning a little bit more towards the downside here, specifically on NVIDIA. But of course, we are at a higher time frame key level support. So most tickers, right, I'm 60% bullish, 40% bearish. For NVIDIA and AMD specifically, I'm leaning a little bit more towards the downside. So I'm more like 65% bearish or even 70-30 on the downside on NVIDIA specifically, just because we've been showing some weakness, right? You can see some more news catalysts that's really driving NVIDIA lower and then Google higher. So you can see here, NVIDIA's stock under pressure is Alphabet's Gemini 3 chatbot, right? You can see that's why NVIDIA and AMD are pushing towards the downside specifically this morning. And that's why it's been staying a little bit more heavy the past really couple of days ever since we had earnings. So these are the two scenarios that we have for NVIDIA coming into today for downside. If we have right upside, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, right? It's just going to be trying to anticipate kind of buyers stepping in off your higher time frame level support. So downside, either the hold of your last week's lows or another possible scenario, reclaim back above your previous day lows for a potential push really back up and towards your 182. So two questions that we have for NVIDIA, two scenarios that we have for NVIDIA today. As I mentioned, I'm fairly neutral. I'm leaning a little bit more towards the downside. I think shorts are going to be tricky just because we have this pretty big gap down. I'd much rather see weakness kind of right off the bat. But for NVIDIA, right, I'm leaning, as I mentioned, close to like 70-30. So 70% bearish, at least coming into this morning. But if the buyers step in right off the bat, then I don't really want to short, right? If it stays heavy right off the bat, meaning, right, you have the sellers stepping in off your previous day lows or we get a drop right off the bat, then I'm going to lean more bearish. If the buyers step in, then don't try and short this because we are in a very key level support being your last week's lows. So this is what we have for NVIDIA coming into today. Let's go on to AMD now here as well. So AMD, fairly similar thesis. You can see it's actually down a decent amount. Let's talk about this. All right. So we just went over NVIDIA. This one's down a decent amount here in the pre-market. AMD down a decent amount here in the pre-market as well. Another negative news catalyst along with kind of Google. Google has the bullish news catalyst. These ones have been beaten down a decent amount the past. As you can see, 20-40 sessions. Now we're right at a key level here. So for Google, the key levels that we had marked out yesterday was our previous day highs. So as you can see right here, we ended up having our previous day highs, which was our Friday's highs, broke above it. Nice retest for a continuation higher. But of course, now in the after hours and in the pre-market, we're actually dropping. So we're dropping underneath now your Friday's highs. We're right at this daily gap here as well. And you can see pretty big drop in the after hours and in the pre-market here. So the key levels that we have coming into today, let's just change this color. It's going to be this 206. Really your previous day lows. And then we have your 196 marked out here. So for AMD, right, this one, similar thing, 70% bearish coming to market open. I'm leaning more bearish, specifically on NVIDIA and AMD. If you want to see downside coming into today, key levels that we have marked out, 206. We really now just want to see the hold underneath your 206 for a potential continued push down in towards that 196. So this is really the number one scenario that we have for AMD, rejection off of your 206 previous day lows for continuation lower. Really longs for me are basically kind of off the table. Longs would have to be the reclaim back above your previous day lows at a minimum for any sort of push higher, preferably above your 210, which is very far away. But for AMD, as I mentioned, right, keep an eye out on your 206. We do have this pretty big gap fill. I don't think we are going to go down in towards that daily gap. You can see the buyers stepped in nicely last week, but now we're coming right back down in towards a key level. 204 is huge still, right? The buyers really need to defend this level, but with kind of the market moving higher, AMD, a couple of negative news catalysts, right? 204 is going to be huge coming into today, right? If the markets want to drop, let's say Spine Qs wants to reject today or consolidate, right? Keep an eye out on AMD and NVIDIA for moves lower, just because negative news catalyst showing some weakness here in the pre-market. If we can break underneath key levels of support, we can see a push lower. So that's what we have for AMD and NVIDIA. Let's go into Google here. All right. So for Google, look at how nice of a push this has been, right? The past really 6 months on Google, just continuation higher. Now we're kind of getting this blow off the top move. So you can see now we're extending fairly nicely, up 6% yesterday, up another 4% once again here in the pre-market. This one is actually going crazy. So for Google, key levels that I have marked out coming into today is now just going to be that 306. Of course, that's not really in play. We have your previous day highs, which is very far away as well. So now we're primarily just using our pre-market levels along with key fibs, right? Key psych levels. Really, technicals are out of the picture, right? Something that's moving this much higher, right? It really has nothing to do based off technicals because there is no technicals, right? I don't have any levels. I can't look left. It's more based off of news, based off sentiment, and it's based off of primarily intraday price action. And you're just going to mark off key levels. So coming into today here, the key levels I have marked out, previous day highs. Of course, this is very far away. You don't really want to see it pull back all the way back down in towards your previous day highs if you are interested in a long position. Key levels that you're going to have marked out as well. I'm going to really mark out this pre-market high level, which is just your 333. So coming into today, I'm going to mark out a couple intraday, or I'm going to mark out a couple pre-market levels. In this case, I'm going to mark out your pre-market high. And I'm just going to mark out your after hours highs as well, which is going to be this 326. So for Google, a couple scenarios, I would just be a little bit more cautious if you're interested in longs, just because we had a nice push yesterday. We're gapping up once again, up about 4%. If you do want to see a long position, you need a pullback, right? Some sort of dip for continuation higher. So for Google coming to market open, couple scenarios, either that opening dip candle, and you'd be looking for that opening drive right off the bat. Another possible scenario, if it pulls back, honestly, back down towards your after hours highs, and then you can be looking for the reclaim. So these trades that you want to be looking for after a big gap up and the daily chart's bullish as well, you really want to be looking for the reclaim for continuation higher. So once price, let's say, drops, right, you can either look to buy that dip or you could be waiting for the reclaim, which would either be above, now it's going to be your pre-market highs, or you can mark out that opening range candle, which is very key. So if the opening range candle is bearish, right, you're going to be looking for the reclaim back above your opening range low, or it'll be back above your opening range high for a continuation higher. So these are the two scenarios. I would just be a little bit more cautious on Google, as I mentioned. If you are trading this, the contracts have been fairly volatile. So they've been very volatile. There's been a decent amount of liquidity on the options chain, just size down because these contracts are moving crazy. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you are interested in longs, as I mentioned, wait for a dip and you could be looking for the rip instead of trying to buy as it's moving higher. So this is what we have for Google. We have about 2 minutes until some core PPI here as well. let me just go over a couple. Let me go over a couple other tickers before core PPI. Apple consolidation, top of the range, a little bit of rejection, not too much to talk about. Amazon, nice little bounce yesterday with the overall markets. Key level has to get above now. Thursday's highs of last week. For Microsoft, really not too much to talk about on this one, right? Kind of been beaten down here, where it hasn't really been affected with the whole AI theme. This one's kind of been lagging the overall markets, but key level of support, just your last week's lows. Meta finally got above our key level. So Meta, nice push yesterday above. Now it's going to be that last week's highs. Oh, sorry, last week's Thursday's highs. Nice push higher. Finally getting some buyers stepping in here on Meta. Ultimately, I think this first pop is going to get shorted, but key level that we have is your 630. So for Meta, nice push higher. Ultimately, this is your key level of resistance now. So now this is going to be the area you're going to keep an eye out on. 630 here for Meta, and then Netflix key level 109. Okay. All right. We just had some core retail sales along with PPI in the markets, basically net unchanged. As you can see right here, PPI month over month, forecasted 0.3. If we're talking about core PPI month over month, came a little bit lower than expected, but basically unchanged here as well. 0.1, forecasted 0.2. Let's see how the market was affected. So with the overall markets, we just had some red folder news. It doesn't seem like it really moved the market whatsoever since it was unchanged now for the Q. So game plan is still technically intact coming to market open. So now I'm going to go over my game plan and a couple of these other names here as well. Yeah, I'll go over my game plan. I'll go over a few more names. So if you guys do have any tickers, you guys can drop them in the chat. I'll go over some tickers for probably 5-10 minutes, and then I'm going to go over my game plan, and then we'll call it a day here. But before we do that, yeah, let me just go on to SPY and Qs. So game plan today here for the SPY and Qs, you can see now we're having this nice kind of reversal setup, right? Coming back up and towards your key low that we have created. So coming into today, the level is fairly clear. Previous day highs. If we can break above, we can see continuation higher. So I'm leaning more towards the upside on the major indices, SPY and the Qs. As I mentioned, 60% bullish, right? 40% bearish. But I'm leaning more towards the upside, maybe even 70-30. But basically leaning more towards the upside than the downside coming into today. Key levels that we have is your previous day highs. So the exact same game plan applies on all the major indices here. It's just going to be the break above your previous day highs for continuation higher. Or if we drop right off the bat, then we're going to be looking for the reclaim later into the session. So there's really two scenarios here for the major indices. Break above right off the bat, or the reclaim later into the session for continuation higher. If you look at the SPY and Qs, exact same thing. Previous day highs, and Q, similar thing, previous day highs. The only way I'm leaning more towards the downside is either now it's going to be kind of the break underneath your pre-market lows. So for the overall markets, I would lean a little bit more lower if we can break underneath this pre-market low. I don't really want to short for this pop and fade right off your previous day highs. I don't really want to short either underneath your pre-market lows, but if we had a weak reaction, potentially that's in play underneath your 603 pre-market lows on the major indices. As for my watches coming into today, so for some of my main watches that I do have, Tesla, number one key level that we have is going to be your previous day highs. If Tesla can somehow show a lot of strength right off the bat, get above your previous day highs, I like Tesla for continuation 430 and above. So we'll keep an eye on Tesla coming into market open, right? Just based off the higher time frames, as I mentioned, multiple touches. But if Tesla can get above your 422.50 previous day highs, we can see a push higher. As for Nvidia and AMD, these are my two main tickers for downside. So let's say the market does want to either number one stall or potentially reject off your key levels. AMD and Nvidia are going to be my main watches lower. For AMD, pop and fade off your 206 for continuation down and towards your 196 is in play. Nvidia, right, pop and fade off your previous day lows or potentially getting underneath your last week's lows for continuation. So if we're looking for shorts, keep an eye on Nvidia and AMD. And then of course, if we're looking for longs, right, you can keep an eye on Google specifically, and then potentially Tesla if it shows some relative strength. As for Google, as I mentioned, this is really based off of intraday price action. So we're going to have to wait for the price action to develop coming into today, right? The key levels that we have is your previous day highs. So these are the levels I usually use, but there's nothing else I can base it off of. So it's based off of your pre-market levels. And then that first 5-minute candle is going to be fairly important for Google. So keep an eye out on your 327 and then mark out that first 5-minute candle that develops coming into today here for Google. As for everything else, right, Apple, not too much to talk about here, kind of stuck inside this range. Amazon, really not too much to talk about on a couple of these ones, more mean reversions. So the main ones, Google, Tesla, Nvidia, and AMD, basically exact same game plan as yesterday. Meta actually bouncing nicely here. I might have to mark out brand new levels here for Meta, but Meta does have room up in towards your 626. As for a few other tickers, let me just kind of quickly go over a few other ones to see if I like anything. Palantir, still showing a little bit of weakness. Key level is this 163. AVGO has made a new all-time high, so keep an eye out on AVGO. Really solid push yesterday. And now you can see we're back at all-time highs here on this one as well. So AVGO potentially is in play here as well. All-time highs, immediate retest coming into market open. Key level that we have is your 390, so this old pivot high, if it'll load. So for an AVGO, potentially right off the bat, bullish news catalyst here as well. Potential dip and rip off your 390 for continuation higher. So this is definitely in play for upside today here on AVGO. As for a few other semiconductors, Oracle's been staying heavy MU. Let's see if it's bounced. A couple of these high beta names slowly pushing higher here as well. Intel slowly bounced. So yeah, my favorite names coming into today, at least for longs, will be Google. I like AVGO here as well, above your 390. Tesla potentially, if you can see some buyers stepping in right off the bat, above your previous day highs. And then for downside, as I mentioned, keep an eye out on AMD along with Nvidia for a push lower. And then for the Qs, right, the exact same level. I kind of talked about this earlier. It's going to be this 606 here. Okay. Yeah, that's about it. Let me see. I haven't really looked at the chat today. Let's see. Good morning. What's up? Yeah, what's up, everyone? Check your messages. Yeah. Make sure make sure as well the Discord. If you're messaging anyone, there's a lot of scammers on Discord, so we always talk about it. Just be very cautious. Tony and I will never message you guys first. If you are messaging us, make sure it's the right one, and you can check based off the Discord. You can see on the profile. Palantir, yeah, briefly went over Palantir, but key level for Palantir, at least moving forward. Let me just mark out some brand new levels here. At least for Palantir, now, based off the higher time frames, key levels that we have marked out. Going to be this old pivot high. We have a couple, we have a couple levels marked out here on Palantir, 164, and we also have your 170. So currently kind of rejecting off of your 164-ish, and now we're pushing lower. So for Palantir moving forward, we like to see pop and fade off 163 for a continued push lower. If you want to see upside, reclaim back above your 163 for a push higher. Let's go over a couple other ones. Gold. I went over gold yesterday. It doesn't seem like it's really changed too much. Kind of bouncing right off a key level support that we talked about. Kind of higher time frame. Potentially trying to break outside of this consolidation that we do have. So for gold upside, really now kind of break above for a continuation higher. So far, you can see buyers really stepped in nicely right off our key level support, which was our 40-40. And now for some upside, key level really now is going to be this 4180. So if you want to see upside consolidation, eventually break for a continuation higher. Let's see. Are you doing this on Friday or taking the day off? I'll probably come on Friday. I'm not expecting to take any trades just because it is a half day after a holiday. Expecting lower volume. Plus, I don't really want to trade 0 days. With it being a half day, I don't want to trade next week's contracts on Friday, especially if the market's not going to be as volatile. So it's a good day to just maybe just chill off, maybe half size, or even take the full weekend, the full kind of 4 days off. That's the best case. Show NQ, there's a ghost behind you. I have my humidifier on. I'm not sure. Can you even see that? That's actually crazy. You never go over people's tickers just because I sometimes don't have enough time. But IWM key level for IWM key level is this 239. So you can see IWM, nice kind of bounce here, key level that we have marked out, 239. Now you just like to see it maintain above 239 for continuation here as well. Markets open on Thursday. No, they're closed. How do you know where your stops is on all traders? Pile their stops at the same place. How do you stop on options? I use mental stops as well. So it's just based off of your invalidation point or wherever your basically point of invalidation. And if you're basing it off, it should be based off the underlying and not the actual options contract itself. Can you update your levels? Yeah, I'll try and update the levels for you guys. So make sure you guys keep updated, at least for this weekend here as well. I'll have the live kind of weekly trading outlook so you guys can see exactly how I draw my key levels. And then I'll make sure I have those key levels for you guys as well. So that's going to be this Sunday. I haven't had a specific time for it as of yet, but I'll keep you guys updated in these live sessions. And then, of course, I'll keep you guys updated on Twitter and Instagram as well. So make sure you're following me on that. But that is going to be it for me today. Appreciate your videos. I'm a new trader and they're super helpful. Appreciate that. Yeah. So that's going to be it for me today. It's I think it was a bug. I didn't realize it was my first time. So yeah, that's gonna be it for me today. Hope you guys did enjoy that. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. If you guys haven't joined the daily watch list, that of course is in the description below. And then I will see you guys all tomorrow. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.